Okay everybody, today I am going to be doing a comparison of different papers. Largely this came out of buying this on sale and then thinking, hey, I got cheap paper, and it turned out it was crap and it was actually more expensive than my better paper. So I'm going to be comparing this. This is a Hobby Lobby brand. It is 140 pound weight, 15 sheets. I'm also going to compare Fabriano, both a cold press and hot press. They are both 140 pound weight. Different sizes, but we'll go into that later. Canson XL, this is what I normally use. I really like it. It's fairly cheap. I don't feel guilty about messing up on it. And then of course the, creme de la creme arches. I have it. I occasionally use it. I'm just terrified to use it because it's so expensive. I want to be super prepared to use it. So maybe this will get me to experiment more with it and not be so timid and scared to use it. All the papers set up here. I actually did it by cheapest to most expensive. Canson's for a 9x12 sheets is 18 cents a sheet. Fabriano hot press is 34 cents a sheet for the 9x12 sheets. Fabriano cold press is 9x12 for 40 cents a sheet. The Pro Art, which was the Hobby Lobby brand, is 73 cents a sheet, or the sale price is 44 cents a sheet. So that's still ridiculously expensive. And then arches for 10x14 sheets cold press is $1.29 a sheet. So you can see why I experiment on this paper that's 18 cents a sheet before I even think about this paper. You can also see the difference in color, the color of the sheets themselves. This is not the super white, this is natural white. Okay, I'm going to divide each of the sheets up into 4 and do the same thing in each sheet just to give you an idea of what they can do. And I'm going to try and use the same colors all the way through. That way it's consistent and you can see the differences. So here I'm going to do a gradient of pink to blue. I'm doing this kind of fast, so I just want to let the colors kind of blend themselves. And see how well they blend in the middle. That's not what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's not. Oh well. And I'm going to do, I have a purple that I'm going to do with the wash because it has granules in it, and so you'll be able to see the grains of the paper. Yes, I need to work on my wash techniques. And then wet on wet, I'm just going to put water down, try and get the paper saturated. Not quite that much. And then put colors on it and see how they spread. Don't ask me what I'm doing right here. I'm just kind of trying to think of a fourth way to test this paper. Something I like to do is I like to put a mess of color in somewhere, and I like to go back and take my brush and just kind of drag it out. That's just something I like to do. It's a fun thing you can do with watercolor. You can't do it with anything else. Alright. Not much of a point in really talking about this while I go along. This is the hot press Fabriano. And I haven't used it a lot. I really should. Try it more. I'm currently doing illustrations for my own children's book, so I kind of should be experimenting with more papers, especially the hot press, because I hear that's good for fine detail work, and since I need to be able to do detail work doing my illustrations, it makes sense that maybe I should try this more often. I liked how that worked better. That could have been just how I did it that time. This is the Fabriano cold press. That's a fun texture. I don't know. Tell me what type of papers you like. I'd love to hear, because all I hear is arches, 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 and that's great. You know, I'm glad that they're a great brand, but there's lots of different paper out there, and there can't be just one type of paper that makes everyone happy, because that just doesn't make sense to me. But I'm still new at this, so plus I'm kind of cheap. Something else I should probably show is the ability to actually pull colors up. That's a good thing for people to see. Let's see if I can. Yeah, well, everything's here. I can do it on this area. That colors comes up. And let me see, can you see this? Yeah. And color can be pulled up here. Sometimes you end up with paper that you can't get any color here. And let's see here. Okay, so this is the paper I really wanted to evaluate, to kind of warn you off of. Is the Pro Art. I tried to think of something nice to say about them because, well, my mom always taught me if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Basically, if you're trying to learn how to work with rice paper, this might be the paper for you because it is like painting on paper towels. I mean, I have my brush like soaked with, I'm not even like tapping it off on the edge. I mean, I can't. Once your paint is down, it is done. There is no adjustment. And all these other ones, I've been using my Royal and Langnickel number 18. This one I'm going to use my Silver Black Velvet. It's in the cat's tongue. Just because I can, like, this thing gets like so full of water. You can see how a lot of the paint, a lot of the water is already gone. I mean, I can't do a wet and wet because by the time I tap, go and get the next color, it's soaked it up. And I mean, this thing is filled with water and it's just gone. So, yeah, I would guess that this is kind of one of those where if you really want to see if you can pay attention to details and make sure you only put down the brush strokes you want, because you are not going to get a lot of the things that I like about watercolor, which is being able to bleed stuff out and spread stuff around and you cannot pick anything up for your life off of this paper. And it was expensive paper. Like, it's way more expensive than both of the Fabrianos, which are very nice papers. And it's not as expensive as Arches, but Arches is a good paper. You know, it's one thing to pay a lot of money for good paper. It's another thing to pay a lot of money for paper that's crap. Because even on sale, it's more expensive than the Fabriano. So, yeah. Let me wait until everything's dry and then I'll show you a run through. I mean, you can see that this is basically dry. But all the other papers, what they look like dry. And then you can tell me your opinions on your papers that you like. And maybe I'll try out those papers next. I don't know. So, tell me what works for you, what type of work you do, and what paper works for the work that you do. Like I said, I need to be able to do illustrations, so I need something a little bit more smooth. The Arches, you know, doing my pen and ink on Arches, it's too rough to do. It really doesn't come through that well. So I need something else. This isn't to say that you can't do any good work on it. I did a couple of Christmas things. Here's my Abominable Snowman and Charlie Brown Christmas tree. But it's not as nice as I would have liked. So I'm going to try and do this in summary. So this is what the Canson looked like after it dried and everything. A decent gradient and spread over here. This is the Fabriano hot press. You can see the different texture, and I guess I probably should compare it to the cold press. So this is the cold press. So this is going to be more comparable. There's definitely more of a texture to the Fabriano. Probably saying that wrong. I liked how it moved. It was very nice. The spread was a little bit more for the wet on wet. In the wash, you can tell the texture a bit different. And you can tell the difference between hot press, cold press. I mean, you can just tell the difference just touching it. So there's not much to go on there. Of course, this one was awful. I mean, this did not spread at all. It barely moved at all because, and it dried all right, but putting it on, it was just like drying as I put it on. You can tell that there's no movement here that there was on here. And you can see how it bled down, and you watched it bleed on the show earlier. And then this is just, it didn't turn out so bad, but still. And then arches, I mean, it's night and day difference, obviously, but I love how this turned out, the gradient. The bleeds worked well, and the wet on wet I liked. And I thought the wash was more consistent than the other washes. So let me see here if I... So this is hot press, cold press, and Canson's, and then arches. So that kind of gives you an idea of, even though this was more textured, you don't see that texture nearly as much as you do on this one or on this one. It just doesn't settle in the grains as well. Okay, now in my everyday life, I get to use a SEM, scanning electron microscope. So I put all the fiber, I took a cutting, you can see how it's cut here. I put that in the SEM and I took pictures. So I'm just gonna quietly flip through them, and you can make your own assumptions based on them. So this is Canson's. So section to here, and then this area blown up to here. So I put those boxes in just so you know where I am on the picture. And this is at 1000x, this is 500x, this is 50x, and this is 7.5x. Here's the Fabriano hot press. Fabriano cold press. And for those that want to compare the hot press, cold press, the fibers are a little bit different, but it's not a big difference. Pro Art, bigger fibers than the others. And if you this Canson hot press, cold press, these are much bigger fibers. They're just bigger. And then arches. Now arches also had big fibers, but you see this little guy? He's so awesome. Those are diatoms. And they are all over Arches paper. Are they not the coolest? Coolest thing ever. I looked all over the place for them because they were so awesome. And here's my little story about where they come from. They're really just phytoplankton. They live in water and sediment, but I think they actually came from afar from another planet, and they're here to bring color and joy to our lives, and art just gave them a place to live where they could be safe.